In his first major parliamentary address on Iraq since he took office in June, Prime Minister Gordon Brown announced on October 8th that the number of British troops in Iraq would be reduced. Here's Gordon Brown.
We plan from next spring to reduce force numbers in southern Iraq to a figure of 2,500.
Brown said the reduction was possible because of improving security in Iraq, particularly what he called a calmer situation around Basra, the southern city where British troops are based. Joining us to talk about what is really happening in Basra is Professor Sabah Al-Nasseri, Professor of Political Science at York University. Professor, why are the Brits reducing their troops? Are they really getting out? What does it represent?
The so-called reduction of the troop is nothing but a redeployment of the troops, because most of these troops will be shifted to Kuwait, the neighboring state of Iraq. And they keep the so-called re-intervention option open. They can re-intervene anytime. But the most problematic thing about it, when it comes to Iraq, when it comes on the ground, like in Basra, for instance, is that the United States and England try to make a lot of concession now to the conservative and right-wing groups in Iraq, especially the militias, and actually to exclude and marginalize democratic secular movements in Iraq. So, because they realize they lost the situation in Iraq. It is out of control.
Out of control or out of their control?
Out of their control.
Because Basra doesn't seem out of control.
Exactly, out of their control. So they made kind of political concession on the protagonists in Basra. Most of them were militias of conservative parties, who rules actually now the streets in Basra. And they redeployed their troops to Al-Basra airport, and they kept the option of intervention under the cover of the so-called Overwatch. But actually they are stabilizing the political position of such right-wing conservative militias and parties in Basra, in Baghdad, just like they're doing the same thing in Afghanistan with the government and Taliban, which is really, even for the people in Iraq the liberal, who thought that the war is about democracy and so on, it's a slap in the face. Because they're actually, what they're doing, they're re-traditionalizing the political forces in Iraq.
So that's the success story.
So that's the success story, which is very problematic because, especially in Basra, you had in the last 4 years a very promising development. You have new trade unions, you have new student movements, women movements, different secular democratic organization and movements who were against the occupation but also against privatization of Iraq oil and so on. So you are just marginalizing, excluding these groups and forces, right?
It's somewhat ironic because it's exactly these secular forces that the US and England want to encourage in Iran.
Exactly.
Except in Basra they want to hand power over to the kind of theocrats they want to fight in Iran.
Exactly.
What's the relationship of these conservative parties whose positions have been strengthened in Basra to Iran?
Well, I mean, look, Al-Maliki, Al-Dawa, Al-Hakim's, the Higher Congress for the Islamic Revolution in Iraq, well, even Al-Sadr, some parts of his organization, have been supported by Iran. Now, in Iran, as I said, wouldn't bet on one horse. It tries to support different groups because the Iranian government doesn't know actually which one of these groups will be, at the last analysis, hegemonic political relevance. So they just try to support all of them, and which create new contradictions and conflicts in Iraq within these groups, especially when it comes to political power, right? So I would say all of them have a relation to Iran, but that does not mean necessarily they are Iranian puppets or they force like an Iranian policies in Iraq. I don't think so.